Hello, Maureen. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for you to tell us your story. And before I let you say anything, the reason I wanted to have you on this podcast was because when the last time you and I were talking, you were sharing your story with me. And what I just kept hearing was this familiar voice that I try very hard to tap into whenever I'm struggling, whenever I have some doubts about what I'm doing as a homeschooler. I try to remember to tap into that version of myself in the future who has done it, right? Who has quote
Right.
unquote crossed the line, who has gotten to that point where she has future children, that version of me whose children are raised and we have the relationships that I've always wanted and I figured it out or I've survived or whatever at the time that feels like at the moment. And I always ask that future version of me, like, how did you do it? What is your life now? What do you feel like? And I try to imagine what she feels like. And I ask her for wisdom in this time, guidance on how to do whatever it is I'm struggling with. However, how do I need to, work with this child who is struggling with something? And I really feel like the Holy Spirit speaks through that exercise. And so when I was hearing you talk about your story and just sharing that with me, I just was getting all the tingles, all the feels like, oh my gosh, this is that future voice that I think every single one of us needs to hear and be able to come back to. So thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to introduce yourself and your family and your history and anything else that you think we need to know.
Oh, thank you so much, Emily. Just such a pleasure to be here, and appreciate you inviting me, and I've loved our conversations. So it's funny because I got the opposite experience of, oh, this is me when I was younger. Well, I think you're a lot more confident and smarter than I was, but it's such a joy to be able to talk to and help, the younger moms. And so many of your listeners may know me as co-founder of Homeschool Connections, as an author, as a speaker, and all those things were born out of what me as a homeschool mom and just wanting to share and give back. Because when I began homeschooling, oh gosh, almost 30 years ago, um, those local homeschool moms, that community was there for me.
Mm.
And I always get choked up a little bit when I talk about it, but I just love those moms, and they pulled me up. And I came from a place where I was away from the church for a long time. And here I am finding my way back into the church, and I meet these incredible human beings that I didn't know existed, right? And so everything that I do through my work with homeschool moms today is born out of that community, and wanting to give back, because it's so important for us to build one another up, and for young moms and even those who've been in trenches for a little bit, to be able to talk to and get advice, get maybe even just a shoulder to cry on, or someone to speak to who's been there, who's done that. So it's just a joy to be here. I homeschooled my 7 children. Um, my oldest is 33, so I guess for 33 years, from the moment my oldest was born, and I whispered in his ear, right, I'm your mama and I love you. That was my first experience as a home educator. So homeschooled them all through high school, except for one who did go to high school part-time. Long story, but that was necessary. Homeschooled him part-time, and he went to school part-time. But they're all adults now. I graduated my youngest just a few years ago. He was my pandemic graduate, and he's in college now. So yeah, been there, done that, and just happy to be here with you today.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that this is something that I tell all of my listeners and my clients, like you are the expert in your children.
Yes,
You know
yes,
what is right for every single one of them. And just because something's right for one doesn't necessarily mean that that exact same thing is right for anyone else in the family. And so I love that you shared with us that you had a kiddo who didn't homeschool all the way through high school. I think that gives so much. Oh, I think just relaxation to like, I could feel it in my body. Like I just relax, like, okay, it's okay. Just because you homeschool for the first however many years doesn't mean that have to absolutely continue with that if it's not right
right.
for this child or using some combination. And I love that we have the ability to do that, that we have the freedom to do that. And yeah, so just thank you for speaking into that, because I
Yeah,
think that
you're
that is
welcome.
something where we feel like it's an all or nothing, and we get trapped into
Right.
thinking homeschooling is very
So,
black and white or all or nothing. So yeah, speak more into that if you want.
well, I would say that all parents are home educators, no matter where they get their formal academics. So even if your child does go to school, a brick and mortar school, how well they do in that school is heavily dependent upon you. Your support of that child, your support of helping them, when they come home from school, are you reading aloud to them? Are you taking an interest in their academics or in their extracurriculars? Do you have an atmosphere in your house where education is important, where you're creating a sense of wonder and observation and all those things that help a child to succeed. So I would say we're all home educators. Um, some of us, better than others, but but the church teaches us, right, that we are the primary educators of our children. So um, part of being a good educator, a good home educator, is knowing when to ask for outside help. So that may be going to your local support group and saying, I need help. It may be going to your spouse, to your parent, to your online community. And it may mean taking some online classes or joining a co-op, or it may mean, like in my case with this one child, enrolling them in school part-time or full-time even. Just, like you said, every child, every situation is unique. And we as the parent have to prayerfully approach, what's best for that individual child.
I love that. And tapping into that we are the perfect mom for these children.
Yeah.
God did not give us other children. He did not give them a different mom. He put us together on purpose, and we're the experts. We really are. We are the expert in every single one of our children. We know what helps them. We know what really does not. We know what they respond to and what, makes them tick and what makes them thrive. So I think just being able to hear that is it's okay. It's okay to
Right.
rest into that. And sometimes it means that it's, all you and you do it all. And sometimes that means that we look for outside help or support. And I love that. I think every single mom out there needs to hear that,
They do.
regardless
So
of
many
what you do.
times I've been introduced as a homeschooling expert, and that's always rubbed me the wrong way, because I feel like, no, we need to really stress that the mom is the expert. I'm the expert in the Wittmann homeschool,
Yes.
and I can tell you what worked for us, and I can share my failures as well. But you are the expert in the Brown homeschool, right?
Yeah.
This mom over here, she's the expert in her homeschool.
Yes.
So I love that you're saying that, because that's just kind of been my mantra for 20 years, has been, you are the
Mhm.
expert, no one else. No one loves your
Yes.
child
I
like you.
love that. Then that's yes, that is my passion. I'm so passionate about helping moms really rest into that expertise.
Right.
And just because something works for me does not necessarily mean it works for you. But in my life coaching work, I can help you unpack what does work for you and and help remove some of the things that are blocking that wisdom that really does come from the Holy Spirit. So I would love to hear more about, why did you decide to homeschool? Okay, we've been a home educator since birth. Obviously, we
Right.
are from the moment your child was born. And I just have to point this out. I love that your first words to him were, I'm your mom and I love you. And that was the first time you were educating him. Like we start with love, we come back
Right.
to
Right.
love. That is the foundation of what we do as moms and as home educators. So thank you for saying that. But why did you decide to formally homeschool?
So, oh gosh, I've told this story a million times, so if you've all heard this before,
Well, tell it
um,
again.
I'll tell it again. You can never say it too many times. I actually made the decision to homeschool 10 years before I ever had children. Um, I was in college and I met this fellow student who had been homeschooled. And back in those days, we're talking 1979, 1980, um,
Back before it was cool.
back before it was cool, and back before the Catholics found it, right? So the original homeschoolers were kind of the dropout hippies, followed by the evangelicals. And we came a little late to the game because we have Catholic schools. But so I met this guy who was homeschooled, and I was like, wow, is that a thing? Like, tell me about this. And I was really intrigued, and he loved it. He said, yeah, I could have my academics done by noon, and then I could focus on the things I loved. I could focus on music and composing and all these things that touched my heart. And he was just this incredibly well-grounded, super cool. I mean, I is just a great human being. So, that especially touched me because when I was in 8th grade, I had back surgery and I was out of school for 6 months.
Mhm.
So I had a tutor come to my house 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. And she had to keep me back because she would meet with, we met Monday through Friday, Thursday, and on Fridays she met with my teachers. And so I wasn't allowed to get ahead of my students, my fellow students in the classroom.
Mhm.
So we spent a lot of free time. I was able to do a lot of reading, free reading. I mean, I was flat on my back. I had these prism glasses where, because I'm flat on my back and I could read a book in my lap. So I did a lot of reading. And I thought, why am I going to school for 8 hours a day? This just, I hated it. I hated school, especially after that experience. I just felt like it was such a waste of time. So when I met this young man in college, I thought, I'm doing that. I'm going to do that. And so I just never looked back. It was never something that was really discussed. It was just, I know I was going to do it.
Yeah. So tell me how that ended up being the best decision for your family.
Oh gosh, so many, you can go in so many directions with that answer. I think it comes down to a few things. For one thing, it's a great way to raise a family, the family life. The education, we can talk all day long, right, about is homeschooling education superior? And that can go in a lot of different directions, but statistically, homeschoolers do tend to score higher. We could talk about how we did spend less time on school and we're able to explore special interests. Like my older kids all did shooting sports. We traveled all over the country doing shooting sports. My oldest son is the national champion for muzzle loading. If you didn't know
Wow.
the thing. But and being able to share our faith, of course, is another thing. I don't have to worry about anyone belittling their faith. They grew up in a home where it was just natural to love God and go to adoration and go to mass and talk about these things and not, they were raised in an atmosphere where they could be themselves. I have some kids who were ultra shy and today are very outgoing human beings. So they were loved as they were and eventually came out of their cocoons and blossomed, right, as beautiful butterflies. I think what my kids would tell you, and talking to them, because I've asked them this question when I've had interviews, and they almost always say, we had a great childhood. It was just fun. It was, they didn't have the stress that comes with going to school every day.
Mhm.
And so I think at the end of the day, it comes down to giving my children a great childhood
Mhm.
and just the family life that it afforded us.
Mhm. I love that. Did you have, and you can share as much or as little with this as you like,
Yeah.
but what were some unique struggles that your kids, like your unique kids, had
Right.
growing up that homeschooling ended up being the best decision for them in what they were going through?
Probably the big example are just special needs.
Mhm.
My oldest child is severely dyslexic and I had him tested at the local public school, and I was told he would never ever read beyond 3rd grade, 4th grade if I was lucky. And I just couldn't accept that. I'm
Mhm.
like, no, I don't accept that. So I, did research. I met, it's a long story how that ended up, but I connected with someone, a local homeschool mom who specializes in Norton Gillingham. She trained me to teach my dyslexic son, and it was long. It was hard.
Mhm.
And he didn't really take off reading till he was 10. But by 13, he was at college level. And today he's a nurse practitioner in family medicine. And, he graduated with honors. He's so that, and then I have kids who are on the spectrum and kids who are bouncing off the wall ADD, and all those situations. Homeschooling afforded us the ability to address their special needs one-on-one,
Yeah.
which you just can't do in a large classroom setting. I mean, Orton Gillingham, which is the one proven method with dyslexics, is difficult in a large classroom. Those kids have to be pulled out and go to special class, which what happens, they get labeled, they're going to dummy class. And so dyslexic children have a much higher rate of dropping out of school, a much higher rate of juvenile delinquency. ADD kids, right? I remember a couple boys growing up when I was in grade school who got labeled as being, stupid kids. Well, they weren't stupid. They just couldn't sit in a chair. Without, I had kids eating dinner and they fall out of the chair. So, I was able to teach them with short lessons, 10-minute, 20-minute lessons, and gradually build. And they're successful adults today, but it's just something that can't be replicated in a large classroom. So I would say that's probably the best thing for us would be my Asperger's son, my ADD kids, my dyslexic kid, being able to teach them one-on-one.
And then I want to imagine that was so valuable for your, we'll say, not differently wired kids, right? To be there with and have learn such compassion. And like, this is normal to just love people exactly as they are.
Right. It
That's
was
so
just a
good for
normal
them.
thing.
Yeah, it's just normal.
Right.
And so all of that experience for all these unique kiddos that you've got all over the place, falling out of chairs. My kids do the same thing. You mentioned that they're successful adults now. Like, can you talk a little bit about how homeschooling has set them up to do exactly the work that God has in store for them now?
Yeah. I think, I had a daughter who shared with me not too long ago. She said, it's interesting, all the things that my husband loves about me are the things that I got from you. Sorry. But things I got from being homeschooled, right? So my love of books, my love of adventure, my curiosity. So I think what set them up was they never lost that joy of learning. Right. So often that can happen in a brick and mortar school. We're at home, instead of replicating school, instead of sitting in a desk every day, right? We were out in the woods exploring. We were in the backyard reading Little Women under the tree, the big oak tree. We did a lot of exploring and connecting with our community. So my goal as a home educator was never to stuff facts in their head, but rather to teach them how to learn. I mean, like you hear Laura Berkowitz talk about that, right? All the time, teaching them how to learn. So as adults, they can teach themselves. So, I have a daughter who struggled with math in high school, and she ended up majoring in math in college. She made the decision she was going to do it, and she did what she had to do to make that happen. And, she has a bachelor's degree. She has 2 bachelor's degrees, one in philosophy and one in mathematics. So I think that's the thing that helped them as adults, was teaching them how to learn and to keep that joy of discovery and learning, and not wanting to just ever accept the status quo. Right. Just we should always be striving to be better, to reflect on who we are and what we do, and how we can be better people and help others around us.
And that sets them up to do anything, like
Right.
just anything in life.
It's all attitude. I mean, really. And it comes down to grace and God. And, why did God create us? To love, serve, and
Yes.
I'm gonna get my Baltimore catechism wrong.
Yeah.
Something. But I remember, years ago when this is almost 30 years ago, I went to a conference and Father John Hardin was speaking. And he said, if the only thing you do in your homeschool is to teach your children to love Jesus Christ as the head of their church, you'll be successful. Well, Father John Hardin was a great academic. So I thought that was kind of scandalous, like, oh, what about academics? You still got to teach them math. But he went on to say, if you really love God and the world that he created, then you want to know more about that world. And you want to know more about mathematics because mathematics is orderly as God is orderly. You want to know more about science because you want to know about the world that God created for us. You want to know more about history because God is the author of history. So, just natural law, right, puts that into our hearts that we want to know and learn. And so to keep that alive in our children is probably the most important thing that we do after serving, our God.
Amen. I love that. Thank you for like bringing that into this, time
Yeah.
and sharing that with us because I think we get very concerned. I have a lot of moms right now who are asking about it's March 2023, so we have a lot of moms who are asking, okay, well, should I start preschool curriculum and what's the best kindergarten curriculum? And I know we all just go shake our heads like, no, 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 like calm down. It's going to be okay. I promise. We need to learn how to love learning and just not
Yes.
tamp down that natural curiosity that children have. And so I think it's so important to just kind of root ourselves back, like, what is our ultimate goal? Right? Not just like, because we get very concerned and very worked up and we kind of navel gaze and look at what do I need to be doing right now? And we forget to look up. We forget to listen to what
Or
he's
we
calling.
look at other people.
Yes. Yo,
I
yes.
always love to share the story of a friend, Becky, who in her home, her and her husband are musicians and artists, and you go to their home and there's always beautiful music. There's someone playing the piano, there's art.
Mhm.
I'm not that person. I have no talent in the arts, and I would look at Becky and think I'm a failure as a homeschooler. Like I don't have all these beautiful things for my children. And one day Becky shared with me, Maureen, I look at you and I'm like such a failure because look at all these cool things you do with your kids. You're reading and you love history and you're doing all these things, and I'm not doing those things. And so, we had a great laugh because no, Becky, I'm looking at you thinking, I'm not you. So we have to accept that we are unique. We can't teach our children everything. There's not enough time in the world. You can send them to the best brick and mortar school in the world. They're not going to teach them everything either. My husband works in Detroit schools. Trust me, schools don't finish the textbook.
Mhm.
There's holes in every education.
Yeah.
So accepting who we are, teaching them what we can, but most of all, teaching them love God and his church and love the world he created and fill our children with that sense of wonder and desire to know more.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so before we wrap up, I would love to know because we're all like feeling really warm and fuzzy right now, which is awesome. And we want that feeling more. But there are also struggles, right? There's so many struggles. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing to have your people around all the time. We love our children. Most of us homeschool because we want something better for them than what we see the world offering to them. We enjoy our kids. Like most of us enjoy our children. We like them. They're
Right.
interesting people. My husband, we have teenage boys now, and he talks about like they're just some of my favorite people to talk to, right? And but it's not always easy. It's not always, super rewarding in the moment. But I would
Right.
love for you to just share, like, off the top of your head, what was one of the biggest struggles that you dealt with? Like what was the hardest part for you in homeschooling?
Right. So there are hard days, right? And there are days when you're Googling boarding schools in France and, and it's, you know, I remember sharing this with my mother-in-law once because she was, she always kept a beautiful, meticulous home. And I could never do that. My house is always a mess. Why? Because they never leave. you know, they're not going off to school like we did. And our moms, if you're a stay-at-home mom, you clean your house. So, that was always a struggle, just beating myself up because I can't keep a perfect house and homeschool my children. I remember a talk years ago by Greg Popchik where he was talking about how, homeschool moms we have multiple full-time jobs. We're full-time mothers, we're full-time homemakers, and we're full-time educators. And so sometimes we do need to let things go or ask for help. So that was probably my biggest struggle, was just, and I think I remember my dad coming one time to visit. So I live in Michigan, my parents lived in Missouri.
Mhm.
Dad travels all the way from St. Louis to see us in Michigan. And the house is a wreck. When he walked in, I'm like, I'm so sorry, Dad. I wanted to clean up before you came, but it was just one of those days, He's like, Maureen, I look around, like, your house is not dirty. I see books, I see newspapers, I see toys. I see there's learning
Mhm.
going on here. I see there's fun. Stop it. You're fine. It's okay. So, just learning to let go of that and embracing it.
Mhm.
And teaching your kids how to clean up, teaching
Yes.
them how to write home ec. And, my husband, I remember at one point, he's like, why are you doing all the laundry? Like, we have all these people that we made. And, so, really letting go of doing it all myself and teaching them how to do it. And when you teach children to help around the house, it takes a lot longer, right?
Mhm.
But trust me, when they get to be adults, it pays off in spades, and it's awesome. And my kids come to visit, we have big breakfasts or whatever, and they're cleaning up afterwards and helping or bringing meals or helping with the dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yes. And I just did a podcast on chores. And one of the
Yeah.
things that I talk about is, being able to compare it to school, because that's what we do. We're like, oh, we should be able to do all of this. But when we look at what they do in a brick and mortar school, there is a not insignificant amount of time that teachers have to spend teaching students how to clean up their desk and pick up after themselves,
Right.
because there's 30 of them in a classroom, right? Teacher can't walk around and do all that for them. They have to learn how to do that. And so it all counts. Like I like to say, like it all counts. So you can look
Put it
at
on
like
the
home ec.
transcript.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. You can count it toward home ec. You can count it toward, teaching them just how to be good citizens and, pleasant humans. I like to say pleasant humans in my home while we work together, and that we're all moving toward a common goal, and that it frees up mom to spend more time with them. If I'm not the one constantly doing housework,
Right.
right? We all pitch in, and then we get to spend more time together. And my kids like spending time with me too. So it's a win-win for all of us.
And it
Um,
gives them a heart for helping.
yeah.
So, when they become adults, they're more prone, they've gotten in the habit of helping their mom, helping their dad, helping with the baby. Um, they're more maternal, paternal, they're more helpful to others as well. So, we don't want them to grow up to be selfish and self-centered.
Mhm.
And part of that is making sure that they are helping around the house and doing it joyfully. At least not complaining too much. My daughter just texted a picture to me a couple of days ago, a coffee cup that said offer it up. And
Mm,
she's like, oh my gosh, I have to get this for you.
that's
Because she
awesome.
probably heard it 20 times a day.
Mhm.
Growing up, every time they would complain, offer it up.
Yep. I love that.
Right.
Okay, so what would be I mean, you've given so much wonderful advice, but if you
Yeah.
could boil it down to like your favorite advice that you love to give to homeschool moms, either brand new or seasoned or wherever they're at in the journey, what would be the thing that you want to offer to our listeners today for them to like walk away with just one nugget?
I would say find the joy in homeschooling. Emotions are contagious. And if you don't like it, they're not going to like it either. And so, find the joy. If you
Mhm.
have to, sit down and write down
Yeah.
why you're homeschooling, what the positives are, what the positive outcomes are, how it grows your family, and focus on that. Yes, there are days when it's hard, but trust me, from someone who's at the other end, so worth it.
Mm,
100%. So
I
find the
love
joy.
find the joy. That is the best. That's the best. I love it. Thank you so much for that.
Thank
All
you.
right. So tell us all about what you do now and supporting Catholic homeschool moms. This is like, oh, it's so good. I absolutely love everything you're doing right now. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot. And so one thing, 14 years ago when I hooked up with Walter Crawford, who was starting a company called Homeschool Connections, which offered free webinars for homeschooling parents. And he invited me to be a speaker. He was doing free webinars, and we got to be really good friends. And I started advising him and saying, you should do it this way, and you should do it that way. And then, like I do, I just butt right in. And he said, Maureen, I just need to make you a business partner. You're already really part of this. And so we did some polling, and we asked parents, what do you need? What kind of speakers do you want to see? And a lot of people came back and said, could you use this technology to do classes? I'm fine, but my high schooler needs help. And Protestants have been doing it for 10 years and Catholics are nowhere around. So we started Homeschool Connections with one government course that we did. And we thought, we'll do 3 or 4 courses a semester, and it'll be great. It'll be a nice little thing to do. And today we have 220 live courses every year, and we have 500 in recording. So we do live interactive as well as recorded independent learning courses specifically for Catholic home educators. Every subject, from accounting to zoology. There's a few things we don't have that I'd love to have, like, Russian or, but we do offer a lot, and we work really, really hard to keep it affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's $35 a month. You can get access to all 500 recorded courses for the entire family, including mom and dad. So, it came out of my own homeschooling, where I saw my friends putting their kids in school when they got to high school, which is fine if that's what you need to do, but they wanted to keep homeschooling, but they didn't feel supported. Right. So we thought, well, if we could offer some online courses, so if you feel uncomfortable teaching pre-calculus, we can do that for you. Or, in my case, Latin, I was a complete failure at teaching Latin. So that's one of the first things I did, was find a great Latin teacher. Mm-hmm. So, there are people who use this as a full curriculum, but we're really designed to kind of supplement and help parents meet them where they're at. We're not a school, we're a curriculum provider, so we provide individual courses.
I love it. And I want to offer I have boys who are using it right now, middle school and high schoolers. And my middle school boy is really interested. He's doing coding, and he's really interested in pursuing, he's taking some Spanish. And my older boys, just finished up some really interesting creative writing classes and history classes. And, one of them, was taking geometry, and he's pretty self-taught, but he really enjoyed having an instructor to kind of listen to.
Yeah.
And right now they're doing theology of the body, which is just, I'm so excited for them to be doing theology of the body. It's just the best thing ever in high school.
So good.
I love it.
So, my whole philosophy is found there in Homeschool Connections, right? So when we find people to teach for us, it's really important to us, right? Again, emotions are contagious. That when, Bill Donahue teaches theology of the body, you can't help but get excited about that subject. It's not a dull theology. This is great stuff, Or Phil Campbell, you can't help but catch his enthusiasm for history when you take one of his classes. Or Dominica Ruggiero, who teaches the coding classes, or Dr. Morrow. They're all people who are excited about their subject matter. So I can find people all day long who know their subject matter, but to find people who are really excited about it and excited about teaching it in the framework of God's creation is just vital. So I'm so excited you guys are enjoying it.
Yes, we absolutely love it. And, I just have, the 3 that are old enough to really dig into it. But I love that they can pick and choose what works for them and what they're interested in, right? Like we get just, you don't have to study, world history from a textbook. You could do it through these great resources and with this expert in it who's so passionate about it. You're not going to find that anywhere else. And so I love that it's all put in one place, and it's super affordable for big families like mine.
And you can go deep, right? I mean, instead of say just doing American history, you could do 12 weeks just on the Civil War. Christopher Martin has this great course on the history of the South, you know, or the history of the civil rights movement. And I just love that's one thing I did with my kids, was just try and go really deep into subjects. And then the peripheral, they can all learn, you know, when they need it.
Yes.
You know, again, creating a lifelong desire to learn and to read, to have a love for reading. So going deep gets people excited about the subject and about learning, instead of a little bit of everything, really learning everything about one thing.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I love it. I love being able to give them the space and the freedom to do that. And because my kids they do go deep, they will spend a little bit of time every day on certain subjects like math, they'll do every day. But then they'll do maybe one day of history because they just spend a week's worth of time on it just in one day because they're so excited about it and they get to go really deep. And then we like to combine, subjects, quote unquote, right? So they'll sit there and, okay, I'm interested in, like, I want to apply that to a story I'm writing. So they'll start writing about and using some of the history that they just learned in it. And so I just love that it sparks creativity, it sparks the imagination, and we do get to look at it through the wonder of God's creation and tie it all in because it's all the same thing. So if you can learn to love learning and get excited about learning and find that joy, just in doing it at your own pace and not have to learn the way someone thinks you should be learning it, I think
Yeah,
there's
you
so
can
much
block.
freedom with that.
Yep, you can block schedule, right? So I had a son who
Yeah.
wanted to crank out biology.
Hmm.
So he did 28 weeks of biology. He did the recorded classes, self-paced, in 8 weeks.
Yeah, you can do that.
You can, you know what, that's okay. You don't have to take a whole year.
Yes.
You know, he's in college getting straight A's, so I didn't mess him up too badly. But that's how he liked to learn. He liked to block schedule. He liked to do like really intense, you know,
Mhm.
maybe 3 or 4 subjects at a time instead of 8 subjects, just learning a few and really focusing, getting those done, and then moving on to the next
Yep.
thing.
Yep. And we have the freedom to be able to do that as home educators. And I
Right.
love that we have amazing resources like Homeschool Connections. So thank you for starting 14 years ago and where we are now. Like, I don't know if you ever imagined it getting to this point, but as a
I did
current
not.
homeschooler using it, I want to thank you. And we're going to put links into the show notes for Homeschool Connections, for all of our listeners so they can go and check out everything you guys have. And then we also have the Catholic Homeschool Conference coming up that you guys are the ones who put on. So tell us more about the Catholic Homeschool Conference that's coming
Super
up this
excited.
June.
Yeah, we're working right now. We're really starting to ramp up our work on the conference, and thank you. You know, Emily is a gold sponsor of the conference this year, so I'm super excited for that, because it's the sponsors who make it happen. We couldn't afford to do it. It's a lot of work and a lot of resources that we pull together to make it happen. So the conference came out of the pandemic. I have been going to conferences for, 25, 30 years, as a speaker, more than 20 years, maybe almost 25 years as a speaker. And, I mean, 10 conferences a summer I would be going to. And I loved it. And I love meeting people and face to face and getting to answer mom's questions and really helping people one-on-one. So when the pandemic hit, everything was canceled.
Mhm.
And the people who were running a lot of the physical conferences just didn't have the time or the resources to pull something together. And Walter and I thought, we're getting 400% more emails, phone calls than we ever were, because everyone was panicking. What am I going to do? How am I going to educate my child? With that, we don't have time either. A friend of mine, Paula Siskanik, called and she's like, you have to do this, you have to. So we did. And 10,000 people showed up. We thought, maybe 500 people will come. 10,000 people signed up. So it obviously was something people needed at the time. And we thought, we'll get through this pandemic and we'll go back to in-person conferences. Well, a couple of things happened. A lot of the in-person conferences still are not back for a number of reasons. But we also found that there are people who weren't served by in-person conferences before, just because of where they lived. We had a lot of internationals. We have people who, live in states and areas where there aren't local conferences and they don't even have local community.
Mhm.
So this is a way for us to really connect people. like we talked in the very beginning, the importance of community is really, really important when you homeschool, to connect with others. So what we have done over the past 4 years since the first conference is that we have made it more and more interactive every year. So when you come to the conference this year, there are interactive workshops, and there are live talks, there are pre-recorded talks. You'll get to meet vendors, and you can actually go into some of the vendors' booths and speak with them live. So just like at a regular conference, right? You walk up to the booth and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about this. My friend Susie told me this is a great curriculum. Can you show me? And so you could do that in a virtual conference. You can actually go into someone's booth and say, hey, show me what you're doing, or tell me, here's my situation. Would your curriculum work for me, or whatever? So, we have a lot of great sponsors. The gold sponsors are you and Ignatius Press and Franciscan University. And then silver, who again also helps support this conference. We have Colby Academy, and I should have written this down. So we have a lot.
We can go check it out on the page.
Go check it out. So, but we're at the point now where people are signing up, and the vendors are just now starting to sign up, and we're starting to put together the booths. So a lot of great vendors. I personally discovered some new people that I didn't know about, and the vendors, you want to make sure that you visit the vendor booths, because almost all of them will have some kind of deal, right? A freebie for you, or a coupon code, or free shipping. So you want to make sure you go into all those vendor booths and check them out. So that, and the thing too is the vendor booths this year, we really listened to people, because what happened last year was everyone really enjoyed the live part so much they missed the vendor hall. And so we were getting all kinds of emails Saturday night and Sunday morning. Like, I still want to go. So the vendor hall will open on Thursday night. So June 8th, like 8th evening, Eastern time. You can go in, start checking things out. We'll start watching the pre-recorded talks. The live event happens Friday and Saturday, June 9th and 10th. And then the vendor hall will stay open through 8 p.m. Sunday.
Love it.
So come for mass if you want, and kind of cruise and take your time and enjoy checking out all the booths.
That's such a blessing. So during the pandemic, when this first happened, I attended, and it was so enlightening for me. Like, I'd already been homeschooling for several years, and I felt pretty confident in it, but I loved learning from, I think her name is Erin Brown. She did this beautiful talk on, teaching kids different reading techniques. And I just was I had little ones who were learning reading at that time. And I thought, oh, I'm doing good. I'm curious what she has to say. So I went and then I learned so much from that talk that she did. So, and that happened over and over with many different speakers. So I just love that, even if and it didn't like rock my world. I didn't feel like I had to go and upheave. There we go. Everything I was doing, it just enriched what I was already doing. And I learned some new things that really served my kids and my family. And so when I saw an opportunity to sponsor the conference this year, I was like, I have to do this. I have to be able to support Catholic homeschool moms in this way of getting even more, help and support into their hands. So anything that I could do, I was like, that's why I jumped in head first, was because it was so important. It was so valuable to me and to my family. And if we could get it in the hands of more people, like, it's worth it. Every single penny, it's worth your time. And then I think they have access for, I think it's a whole year.
Yeah.
Is that
So
true?
11 months. So through
11
next May, because we got to kind of take it down and start building the new
Sure.
conference. But yes, so through May of 2024, you'll have access to those recorded talks. So I have friends locally, some of the young homeschool moms, they meet monthly and they watch a video together, and they do it as community. So that's the other thing is, if you do have local community, you can do watch parties. Reach out to me. We do give you a discount if you have a watch party. Though it's really affordable to start with anyway, but
Yes.
so you can do watch parties, you can have access for the next year. There's just a lot of ways that you can use it to build up your homeschool, and as well as local community.
It's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I have some tickets that I'm going to be giving away. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that after we wrap up, and how our listeners can maybe enter a drawing to win a free admission to come to the conference, get more people there and make it more affordable. And it's already incredibly affordable, like for
Yeah.
what you're getting access to, and the minds and the information and all the freebies and things that people are putting together for this. It is a ridiculous, it's a steal, you guys. And I
Right, I
love
mean,
it.
the cost of the ticket can, if you just use one coupon, you'll probably pay for your ticket just
Yeah,
going into the booth and getting those deals, right?
totally. I
Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah.
Well, Maureen, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing your heart, for just everything that you have done, all of your yeses along the way, every single fiat that you have given the Lord. And it is coming to fruition today, and it will continue to, provide fruit for many years to come. And on behalf of everyone, I just want to say thank you for that, for your yes, and just for being that future self voice for us, reminding us of the actual goal. And that's to help our kids learn how to love learning by learning how to love God first.
Amen. Oh, you said that beautifully.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to what I just said and write it down. But yeah,
Thank you
let's
for
do
having
it.
me.
That's what we're doing. So thank you so much, Maureen, for everything. And I cannot wait to come be part of this amazing conference in a couple of months.
Thank you.
God bless.